The siren song of ChatGPT and junior devs that listen to it. When ChatGPT launched, many fresh developers used it to finish assignments faster, even tackle more serious tasks at their jobs, some more than others. In their case, they quickly found themselves using GPT for most of their work. Let me tell you how I almost fell for the same trap. By Bruno Licht. And hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Let's dive in. So, the honeymoon phase, the end of spring was coming near, and with it came the deadlines for multiple projects I needed to finish to pass another year at my college. I was building a Spring Boot application with React as front end. Having always hated doing front end work, I slowly chipped away at building the website UI for the app. I looked through a couple tutorials to find the solution to my problem. Still, not even the famous Stack Overflow website contained the knowledge or the hints necessary to push me in the right direction. And I would argue if you're having a little trouble Googling it, I do think ChatGPT is a good resource for that. I heard of ChatGPT many months ago, including many stories of what good solutions it provided. As a skeptic at that time, I condemned others for using it as an easy way of solving problems, which is rightfully so. As I closed another tutorial, I glanced over to the side of the website, and there it was, an ad about ChatGPT. I thought to myself, to hell with it. If this thing does not help me, I'm choosing another topic for my project. I launched the website for the first time, signed in with my Google account, clicked all the needed consent options without even looking, which almost came at a price later in my life, and typed in my requirements for the problem. And there it was, typing the solution to my problem before my eyes. I copied it, shoved it into the proper place, my code, and fired it up. My first reaction was, how the hell does this thing work? I was amazed. Another problem, another GPT solution. At the moment, it felt like magic. I have only seen things in movies until now. And yet, there it was, a reality. So here's the problem. Like, there are multiple problems to this, but I'm just going to point out one. I copied it and shoved it into the proper place. This is the problem, right? If you're going to look stuff up, let's say you truly do not understand how to solve your problem. Like, at the very least, like, have ChatGPT explain what's going on, and then try to explain what you think is going on, and have ChatGPT give you feedback and kind of correct holes or gaps in your knowledge. And also have it recommend, fundamental concepts that you probably need to understand a little bit better, so that you are able to come to this solution on your own, right? That's how you properly use ChatGPT. If you're not really able to find your answer through documentation or even Stack Overflow or anything like that, like, don't just copy it, right? And obviously this person is saying or wording it like they've made a mistake, but a lot of people do this, and especially CS grads, or CS students are really screwing themselves over with this. Remember, it's not about passing the grades. A lot of CS students are not getting hired. A lot of CS grads are not getting hired into dev positions. It's about making sure that you are thoroughly learning what you are paying a shitload of money for, and you are actually becoming a good software engineer. It's not just about those good grades. And that's kind of the pressure and just the flaws of some traditional education and the way that we even teach software engineering through CS degrees. So self-taught developers, you got to be a little bit more savvy and resourceful. And that it's an expectation from the beginning, which is a benefit for sure. But yep, let's keep going. Diminishing returns. A week had passed, and I had made great progress on my project with most of the work done. I felt I had time to deal with some of the other assignments waiting for me. I started typing the base code. Can we just be honest? Like, you procrastinated a bit, right? That's why you feel so pressured to get all of these assignments done and kind of like use ChatGPT and become dependent on it. You procrastinated. That's probably the root cause of this. I started typing the base code needed to support the solution and realized how big of a hassle it would be to type all the necessary code. This is templates, too. This is a problem with templates when you are a brand new developer. I think it's okay to use like really basic, like scaffolding. If you just want to, let's say you are building a React app and or you don't really want to use Webpack, you don't want to build that bundle, maybe you just want to use Vite or something like that. But like a creation tool to be able to quickly spin up a React app and scaffold things, I think is helpful in the beginning when you want to get more comfortable with React fundamentals. But eventually, like, in real scenarios, you're probably going to be diving into Webpack. Webpack is a really common tool to use, and you're probably going to need to get more comfortable with some of the configuration with Webpack. And yes, I'm talking about at entry-level positions in this current market. So in the beginning, to be able to spin something up quickly and scaffold, even with templates, I think it's okay in the very, very beginning when your focus isn't on understanding how this is set up, when it's just on like going over the foundational concepts of the framework that you're trying to learn. But be careful even about using templates for that purpose. Eventually, you want to dig into the weeds a little bit with the scaffolding. And I would argue sooner than later, especially to get that muscle memory in. I switched over to my now favorite website and asked it to give me a generic solution. But this time, it didn't give me a ready-baked solution. The output was just a bit of textual instructions of how the solution would be written. A bit frustrated at first, I thought, all right, I will just ask them about each part of the instruction, even though I knew how to complete them. Sometimes I got a perfect good solution. Other times I produced code that was either too generic or completely wrong. This pattern continued for a day or so when I finally realized developed dependency. So even to this day, ChatGPT is still wrong. It's going to be wrong for a while. Experienced devs, I wouldn't even say experienced devs. I think if you developed good habits of debugging, if you developed good habits, of using ChatGPT in a way where you're not just copying and pasting code, you actually understand what's happening. And if you don't, you are able to decipher that or able to give proper prompts to ChatGPT to help walk you through some of this stuff so you fully understand what's happening in the code that it has produced and then type out that damn code for muscle memory, especially in the beginning. I feel like if you have the habits of debugging and if you understand the code that's being produced, you can get past some of the hallucinations. You can get past some of the things that it is confidently wrong with. Then it becomes a tool that's really useful and it can help speed up your development. If you find that you are just extracting that code and placing it in, and you are doing that frequently, you might want to be critical of, do you really understand what you're trying to build, what you're trying to solve? And are you just making an excuse that, oh yeah, I kind of get it, but I'm just trying to be faster? Are you really trying to be faster, or are you actually becoming more dependent on it? And I would argue once in a while, when you think you are being productive with ChatGPT, I would challenge yourself to really flesh out that code all on your own. You can look up documentation, but don't use ChatGPT. Every once in a while, just challenge yourself to do it on your own. Even if it seems like it's going to be a pain in the ass, just do it that way. And I think you're going to find that a lot of times you're probably a bit rusty. And I've seen this a lot with experienced developers creating a dependency on ChatGPT. And I think a lot of you know what I'm saying is true. And you probably should, even if it's just using it a little less often, I think you should aim for that as a goal. Because a lot of developers are becoming really rusty. And that's professional developers. We're not even like creating a dependency as a junior developer that's just trying to get into the industry. You're in for a world of hurt. I became too lazy to write my own code. I felt bad for relying on it this much. Good. It's a proper feeling to have. I took the rest of the day off, hoping I would feel better by the next day. But as I started typing, my mind wandered off to GPT whenever I had an issue for which I couldn't think of a solution in under 2 minutes. this is it. You're creating a pattern in your mind it's just like a negative feeling that if you don't get that solution right away, like, let's just ease this feeling and get that dopamine hit that we're making progress. A lot of good developers have gotten very comfortable with struggling for longer periods of time, but they've developed ways of debugging and building to be able to make a little progress here and there. They're still making progress. They're still able to critically think through problems. And if they're not, they're able to basically get past those blockers, and they built systems to be able to do that in their own mind. At that point, I knew I had gone too far. Yeah, but I decided against it. Listen, honestly, Bruno, like, you are way ahead of so many developers that have completely lied to themselves for so long about this dependency problem. Like, you are miles ahead of them. But I decided against it, staring at the screen once again for a half an hour until my wheels started turning on their own. And that's what it is. You are creating a dependency which causes you to think critically think way less. You're using different parts of your brain to be able to solve the problem. And when you create this dependency, ChatGPT is doing the critical thinking for you. I can't, like, this is horrible for professional developers. It's way worse for newer developers when you need to train your mind to think about these problems in a way where, like, to solve common problems that software engineers have to solve on a daily basis or weekly basis in their professional positions. It's just, you're always going to encounter situations where AI isn't the most helpful tool. Then what? You've just let your mind atrophy. You let your critical thinking skills atrophy. You let your problem solving skills atrophy. And that's the problem. For all the people arguing that AI is going to be a tool that software engineers are going to use, yes, but not for every single problem and not all the time. You are creating a weird illusion for yourself where you are going to be able to do your entire job with AI. And if you basically can't, which obviously you can't, that's not a realistic scenario, you're letting all these skills atrophy. You're becoming terrible devs for it. It's just the truth. Like, don't do this in the beginning, especially in the beginning. It's such a horrible time to just do, like, and this has kind of been a problem with people that have copy and pasted code from Stack Overflow. Like, this is just, you have a new technology to fuck up even more easily, right? Like, now it's even more appealing to just create really bad habits. It's easier to create really bad habits when, developers 10 years ago did this as well, and they would just copy and paste code. It's the same thing, different technology. Don't do it. Like, and they were, told not to do it before, and for good reason. And people that didn't, that would critically think through stuff and that would go back through foundational skills if they didn't really understand something, like, they became good software engineers, while all of the, a lot of the devs that would just copy and paste things and never were taking that seriously, and they didn't do well with their career if they even started their career. So this is a problem that has been around for a long time. AI is just a new tool to make this problem even worse. Of course, I still consulted Stack Overflow. Okay, so it felt good to tackle new issues. Again, of course, I still consulted Stack Overflow for possible solutions, but as I came across the wrong ones, I analyzed why it wouldn't work in my case, or rather, why it was probably too complex for my needs. The old pattern of wasting time thinking of different solutions was back, and I was glad. Put trust in yourself, not LLMs. It's quite easy to be fooled by its power and speed in delivering new ideas and solutions, but more than generated wrong code and, more than generated wrong code and claimed it works more than a few times. Did I just, hold on, I got to read this again. But more than it's easy to be fooled by its power and speed in delivering new ideas and solutions, but more than generated wrong code and claimed it works more than a few times. That feels like wrong grammar, bad grammar. At that point, you must patiently guide it until it comes to a correct solution. And please think twice before pasting a block of code in it. By default, anything you ask ChatGPT is you ask GPT okay, dude, I can't read. It's probably me. By default, anything you ask GPT is stored for later use in training. Not to mention, sensitive information should be omitted from your question. Avoid leaking personal information, or even worse, unauthorized access to your company's network. Unauthorized access, when would that happen? If you leaked anything that would gain access to it? Luckily, there's an option to disable such behavior, but most new users aren't even aware that GPT is learning from its users' input. It is learning. This is very true. Be very careful about plopping your code in, but to be honest, a lot of your sensitive information is going to be stored probably in an environment file. I still, if you're a professional developer, I still think it's worth talking to your manager and seeing the do's and the don'ts and figuring that out before you even copy and paste code, because you're going to have some employers that just don't trust AI. They don't trust the companies that have developed these LLMs. That's probably a more accurate thing. And for you to copy and paste code that company owns could land you in some legal trouble, potentially. So this is a conversation I would have with your employer. But, if you're just building a personal project, that's a little bit different. These are just considerations to make. But be careful about, obviously, adding any sensitive information to this where it could be outputted to another user. Use with caution. This may read as if I'm against ChatGPT as a means of coding, but on the contrary, it serves as a warning. It can help you analyze your code. This is good. This is a good use case. It can give you helpful tips on improving it. Yep. And point out any potential bugs that could occur. Yep. In that regard, it's like a mentor that's available. And that's what you use it for. A good mentor doesn't give you the solutions. It helps. The mentor helps. I'm saying it because I'm saying AI, but a mentor helps guide you towards that solution. And that mentor identifies gaps in your knowledge and will even pause the exercise if your fundamentals are just lacking in a certain area. And, now we got to dive back into certain foundational concepts that you obviously don't have down. That's what a good mentor does. Mentor does not give you solutions 99% of the time. You can also ask how something specific works if you don't have time or energy to go through documentation pages. So documentation lookup is really helpful. And I use it for that quite a bit. But it's also, you got to check the dates at which it received its data last and make sure that it's not out of date. But I think to identify, if your ORM is able to do something with a really simple method, to be able to find that, obscure method that you don't think exists that might exist in the documentation, look through the entire documentation to try to find it. I don't know if that's a good use of your time. But asking ChatGPT to do that and do a quick lookup, I think is a really good use case for ChatGPT. But as I advised before, you should double check the information given if you are doing serious work that will not only be used by you. Very true. Ultimately, it all boils down to using GPT responsibly and allowing yourself to be challenged first before relying on the power of AI. I think Bruno is going to turn out to be a fantastic software engineer, and I think he has the right mindset for this. I'm going to expand on this a bit, but I'm intermittent fasting, so I'm going to drink some water. All right. If you had to pick one, use AI extensively throughout your journey or use it use AI to be able to create code for you as you're trying to become a developer, or don't use AI at all, you should definitely choose the latter. You should just scrap AI from your toolkit when you're learning. When you're learning, this is crucial. There's a lot more. So there are many reasons why people will try to use ChatGPT for their code as a new developer. One is to be able to create a project, because they're realizing that, the portfolio that they're building up, the projects that they're building up, it's going to take a long time to flush these out. And they're trying to save time. They're trying to be more efficient. That is a horrible reason to use this. I think a lot of people just need to get very comfortable with their path taking potentially years to become a developer. And if you're not comfortable with that, you're going to try to find a lot of shortcuts. And I think that's going to hurt you in the long run. I see it among many developers that are trying to get into the field, and they are just trying to find shortcut after shortcut after shortcut. And the truth is, a lot of developers need to be very comfortable with being uncomfortable, not knowing something. And they need to realize that their path isn't very linear, right? They're going to, because no path is perfect. You're not going to find the perfect path, and you're going to identify holes in your knowledge where you got to go back and learn that thing. And you got to practice and build stuff to reinforce what you're trying to learn as you're filling those holes in your knowledge. Your journey is going to be long, and you are going to have many uncomfortable moments and frustrating moments where you aren't quite able to solve the problem, right? And, as Bruno did, he would just if he didn't get to a solution in 2 minutes, he would just lean on ChatGPT, and he trained his brain to just reward that behavior. That's what you're doing, right? If you start struggling, you're training your brain to immediately go for the easiest solution possible, no matter how in-depth you are learning this concept, no matter how well you are learning it, no matter how you are reinforcing it. You're training your brain, which is going to make it much harder to pull yourself away from ChatGPT. You're not really getting comfortable with being uncomfortable with developing your own problem solving and critical thinking. You're letting those muscles atrophy, and it's going to be if you are someone that has leaned on ChatGPT to be able to try to speed up your process and write code for you to build out projects so that you could show employers and then apply for jobs. Those muscles, they're not really muscles, but those skills have atrophied, and employers will pick that up. Employers look for critical thinking ability. They look through your problem solving ability, which is why remembering leak code problems isn't helpful. It's just not. Remembering leak code problems and solutions isn't helpful. What is helpful is understanding the problems and understanding that there are probably common patterns to be able to solve this, but you have to have foundational knowledge on these concepts, these building blocks that make up this solution. Those employers are looking for how strong is that foundation, and how do you use that foundation to be able to solve these problems that are slightly different, but how do you think through and use these building blocks to build the solution that encompasses all of these little building blocks, all of these foundational concepts. You don't train your mind to think like that when you depend on just copying and pasting code. And again, this isn't just an AI problem. This is a copy and paste from Stack Overflow problem, right? This problem has existed for a very long time, and all you are doing is making it extremely hard, exponentially hard, as you continue to create dependency of learning and training all of the skills that you need to be a successful software engineer that companies want to pay, that provides real value to companies. A proper use case for AI, especially among new developers, is, I think, documentation lookup for obscure things. It is having it be your mentor. There are many things, but even analyzing your code and giving you feedback. That's also a good thing. But I want to talk about the mentorship, because the mentorship can be really helpful for new developers. And I've touched on this, but I'm going to go over it again. When you are asking ChatGPT for help, you are not asking for the solution. You are asking it to kind of give you a hint or identify foundational concepts that try to explain what you think the solution is and where you're getting tripped up, what you're confused on. Give it context, right? And say, hey, I want you to act like a mentor to me. I don't want you to give me the solution, but I want you to help me work through the solution on my own. If there are foundational concepts that I'm missing, I'll try to explain everything that I'm thinking. And I want you to basically be the perfect mentor for me. And I want you to help guide me through this. And if there are foundational concepts that I'm missing that I need to learn, I want you to tell me that, right? And then create tutorials on going over those foundational concepts and have those tutorials be very context specific to the parts of those foundational concepts that I don't understand, right? Like a loop is made up of several things. Like, what part of loops don't I understand when I try to explain how I think loops work? ChatGPT is really good at curating context-specific mentorship for you without telling you the answer. Have it be your mentor. Don't have it write code for you. That's the big difference. And a lot of people are using it to be able to solve the problems for them. And the problem is that you are just becoming a worse software engineer for it. And this isn't a small problem. This is a really large problem among many new developers. And I mentioned this before. This is creating way too much dependency. Software engineers are getting dumber, that our professional software engineers are creating dependency, and they are letting these skills atrophy. Skills need to be consistently built upon to either maintain them or build them up. If they're not, they atrophy. That's just what happens with your skills. You have to maintain that. So this is a problem among new developers. This is a problem among more experienced developers. And honestly, like, I think Bruno has the right mindset for it. And he identified that you want to use it for mentorship and be very careful about the dependency. But I think a lot of people truly need to understand how bad of developers are becoming with this AI dependency. Like, it's going to become a really bad problem in this industry, and we have to start calling it out before it gets worse.